Let's start with something that seems simple, but is incredibly powerful: the importance of questioning established norms. This is one of those ideas that has echoed through history, and it's still as relevant today as it was during the times of Galileo and Newton. I think about it, every major leap forward in human progress has come because someone dared to ask, what if we're wrong? It's easy to accept things the way they are, to follow tradition or the status quo. But what happens when you start to question those things? That's when real change happens. Galileo questioned the idea that the Earth was the center of the universe, and look where that got us: an entirely new understanding of our place in the cosmos. Newton questioned the way we understood motion and gravity, and we ended up with the laws of physics that still govern our world today. So the first core idea is this: progress happens when we challenge what we think we know. And here's the important part: this isn't just about science. It applies to everything: politics, culture, even personal growth.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
The moment you start questioning, you open the door to new possibilities. Now let me ask you something really deep. When was the last time you questioned something you've always believed? Whether it's about society, your work, or even your own potential, challenging assumptions is the first step toward true innovation. It's uncomfortable, sure, but it's also necessary if you want to break through to the next level. Now let's talk about the Enlightenment. This era wasn't just about philosophers sitting around thinking deep thoughts. It was about fundamentally changing how we look at the world. The thinkers of the Enlightenment, like John Locke and Voltaire, challenged the idea that knowledge was something you were born with. They argued that knowledge comes through experience, and that led to some pretty radical ideas. Things like human equality, tolerance, and the pursuit of progress. These aren't just abstract concepts. They laid the groundwork for modern democracies and the idea that everyone should have a say in how they're governed. Think about the world we live in now. The idea that all people are created equal, that didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It came directly from Enlightenment thinkers who questioned the old systems of monarchy and divine right. And that's why we live in a world today where equality, human rights, and democracy are considered fundamental values. But here's the thing: these ideas are still evolving. We're still debating what equality means, what tolerance looks like, and how to balance individual rights with collective responsibility. So here's another question for you. What do these Enlightenment ideas mean in your life? How do you balance your own personal freedom with your responsibility to others? These aren't just philosophical questions. They're the kinds of questions that shape how we live and interact with each other every single day. All right, now we're moving into something that might seem a little less philosophical but is just as impactful: the Industrial Revolution. This was the moment when everything changed. Before this period, most people lived in rural areas, working the land. But as industrialization took hold, people flocked to cities, factories sprang up, and we started mass-producing goods in a way that was unimaginable before. This revolution didn't just change how we made things, it changed everything about how we lived. Suddenly, you had entire populations moving to urban areas, working in factories, living in cramped conditions, and dealing with the rise of a new class structure. The idea of capitalism as we know it today was born during this time. And while industrialization brought incredible progress, it also brought a lot of challenges like poor working conditions, child labor, and environmental degradation. But here's the crazy part: so much of what we take for granted today, from the way our economies work to the way our societies are structured, can be traced back to this period. So here's a deep question for you: are we still living in the shadow of the Industrial Revolution? In many ways, yes. The way we work, the way we consume, even the way we think about progress, it all stems from that period. And as we face challenges like climate change and income inequality today, we have to ask ourselves, what lessons can we learn from that time? How can we balance progress with sustainability? All right, we've covered the importance of questioning norms, the transformative power of Enlightenment ideals, and the world-changing effects of the Industrial Revolution. But now, let's get into something that underpins almost everything we've talked about so far: the scientific revolution. This period wasn't just about discovering new facts, it was about changing how we think about knowledge itself. Before this time, people largely relied on religious or philosophical explanations for how the world worked. But then, people like Galileo, Newton, and Kepler came along and said, hold up, what if we could actually test our ideas? What if we could observe the world and draw conclusions based on evidence? This shift was monumental. It took us from a world where we accepted things on faith or authority to a world where we could question, test, and verify. And guess what? This idea, the idea that knowledge is something we can discover through observation and experimentation, is the basis for all modern science and technology. The phone you're watching this on, the internet you're using, the medical advances that save lives every day, none of that would exist without the core idea that we can understand and shape the world through science. But here's a thought-provoking twist. The scientific revolution didn't just give us progress. It also gave us challenges. As we've advanced scientifically, we've also faced ethical dilemmas. And think about it, we've developed technologies that can both heal and harm. We've explored the universe, but we've also degraded our own planet. So here's a really deep question for you. Is progress always worth the cost? As we continue to push the boundaries of what's possible, we need to constantly ask ourselves whether we're using our knowledge responsibly. Here's where history meets the present in a really urgent way: the Anthropocene. This is the term scientists use to describe the current era, an era where human activity has become the dominant influence on the planet's climate and environment. And the roots of this go back to, you guessed it, the Industrial Revolution. Since that time, we've been altering the Earth's ecosystems in profound ways, from deforestation to pollution to the looming threat of climate change. Now, this isn't just about the environment. The Anthropocene forces us to ask some of the biggest questions humanity has ever faced. What is our responsibility to the planet? And what kind of world do we want to leave for future generations? This isn't just about science or politics, it's about ethics. It's about thinking beyond the immediate benefits of progress and considering the long-term consequences of our actions. And here's the kicker: we're the first generation in human history to fully understand the impact we're having on the planet, but we might be the last generation with the power to do something about it. So the final deep question I'll leave you with is this: what kind of legacy do you want to leave? In a world shaped by revolutionary ideas, we have the power to shape the future, but only if we're willing to take responsibility for the present. And that, my friends, is the essence of these 5 core ideas that have shaped modern society.